oh, this is so hard. And they just keep working. They're literally chasing their tail with that because they don't know what else to do. It's because 1 hour of their day, they're going this direction. Another hour of their day, they're going this direction. Another hour of their day, they're going this direction. And then they get to the end of the day and they're like, I'm right where I started. It's because they went like this. And that's what most people do. And so there's very little forward progress, but they survive. They exist. Every business owner will face the same obstacle. The requirements for them to grow their business change so that the role that they've been in is no longer the role that they need to be in order to facilitate the next level of growth. So for example, say a guy is good at plumbing, right? He's been a plumber for years. He wants to go out there on his own and run his own plumbing company. It's his proficiency plumbing that's going to take him from 0 level to 5 level or whatever these numbers are. Like it's going to help him climb that ladder, and he may hire 2 or 3 or 4 guys and have a little team, but still he's firsthand involved with plumbing. He's connecting pipes, he's laying out plans, he's making sure everything runs downhill that needs to run downhill. Like he just knows that stuff. But at some point, there's going to be a level of growth where the issues that he faces are no longer plumbing related. Now he's got to deal more with human resources. He's going to be getting, hey boss, I can't come to work today. I got the flu, and then my truck blew up and I can't make it to the job site. I need help. All these become chaos management. Then it becomes payroll management. Then it becomes tax strategy. So no longer are his skills and proficiency. He could be a master A1 plumber, like the best of the best, but he's going to hit a ceiling. There's nobody out there telling you, once you do this, you need to take off your plumber's hat and put on this hat, this hat, this hat, and this hat. If you're hitting a ceiling and especially if you've hit that ceiling, come down, bounced in a similar frame of revenue multiple times, then that is a very clear indicator that there's a new role up here that your company requires, and it's either got to be you, it's got to be somebody else, but it's missing. There's deficiency there.
Yeah.
And you've got to fill it.
So let's take one of our clients. He's a general contractor. He's doing 1.2 to 1.9 million each year is kind of the range he's been in. So he's hit the ceiling and bounced up and down a few times. Based on what you're saying, he might need to look at, okay, you're no longer a general contractor. You're like, you need to get out of that frame and graduate or evolve to, you're somebody new if you want to break through that ceiling of 1.9.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I guarantee you there's things that he needs to delegate that he's holding on to, that he's having a hard time letting go of, because that's the classic. I mean, that's 99.9% of people that we talk to, our clients. There's something they just don't want to let go of, or maybe multiple things they don't want to let go of. So there's skills that they're not bringing in, because when you're holding on to stuff and you're not bringing in new skills and you're not doing new things, you can't become a new person. So you're going to continue to be the same person, which means by definition, you're going to continue to get pretty much the same results. So if you want to see a change, you got to be the change you want to see in the world. It's kind of funny,
Nice.
But you really do. You do have to embody some of those things. And in order to do, it's hard though, it's a process. And I can tell you, I've gone through it multiple times. I know what it's like. I've gone up, I've made changes, I've slipped down into ruts and drifted and come back and made changes. And it isn't just a matter of like, you need a process to follow. You need frameworks to follow. You need people and systems to delegate stuff to, so that you can't just say like, oh, okay, I'm not going to deal with that. You need to decide what it is that you're not going to deal with. Then you need to have systems whereby you're going to manage the things you're not dealing with but are delegating to somebody else. See how that's different than plumbing? See how that's different than general contracting? It's now system engineering. It's now management of delegated tasks. So that same general contractor, if that person wants to continue to climb like this, their life on a day-to-day basis might look so different 365 days from now if they want to keep doing that. So I can show them exactly how, but they've got to be willing to let go of some of the things they do now, which is for sure, I would bet my life on it, every dollar in my bank account, that there's things that he would say, well, no, I mean, I need to be doing that. That's probably something that I should do. And some of those things are okay. And then he may be right in many of those things. But he's got to be willing to let go of some of them too. He's got to look at this. If there's a list this big of, I should be the guy that does this, well then we got to whack like this many out, like this bottom part down here. We need to get rid of and put on somebody else's shoulders with the right systems and the right management techniques so that the job still gets done, but he isn't the one doing it. Now, if he's got this much bandwidth in his schedule, what are we going to fill this time with? Well, we're going to bump it up here to things that truly he needs to be doing. So he may need to learn how to use a computer a little bit more than a pencil, or he may need to learn how to think about taxes just a little bit differently. You know, and a lot of people, they hear some of these words like, oh, I'm not good with computers. Stupid, just terrible limiting beliefs. Taxes, oh, same thing. I didn't say he needs to become a CPA, and that's what people jump to. They have these things, and that's what keeps them locked under the ceiling they keep hitting, is they think, taxes, and then they just shut off. There's like this iron curtain in between where they are today and who they think they need to be, and it's just not that freaking deep at all. All they got to do is understand that it's a process. It's a process that never goes away, and it's kind of like that circle that I like to keep drawing, you know, that it starts here. But if they've made their second or third iteration in business, and that's the ceiling that they hit, well, if they want to keep that expansion, if they want to keep growing, then they have to spend some time doing different stuff.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking about from the perspective of a business owner that already feels overwhelmed, like they're putting in the 80-hour, 100-hour weeks, just white knuckling, trying to break through that ceiling, but never doing it. And you're saying they need to do new things. How do they reconcile that? Like, I feel like that could be almost discouraging, where it's like, like I'm trying, but like, how do I find room for it? And is that why you would say probably, oh, well, you need a coach to help guide that?
Your example or your question about like the guys and the gals that are just like, oh, this is so hard, and they just keep working. They're literally chasing their tail with that because they don't know what else to do. So you either have to start bringing new information in, i.e., you dedicate 5 hours a week where all you're doing is reading trade publications, self-help books, things like that. And you're bringing this into your mind and you're trying to unlock your own blocks yourself. Really hard. But doable. I mean, definitely. If you practice self-awareness, that's the definition of it, right? Or you bring somebody else or multiple others in who you can trust, either through a mastermind coalition, through, you know, like a group of people that are working towards common goals that'll say, Zach, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? That's stupid. You know, why do you keep thinking that way when you get on the bench press machine? That's just dumb. And you're like, I didn't even realize I was thinking that way. Or a coach that you pay that's going to be very abrupt because they don't have any skin in the game like you. You know, they don't have the baggage. Their skin in the game is, I'm going to help you get results, and I don't really care if you think we're friends. You know what I'm saying? And so they're not going to be like, well, you know, if you want to, you might think about this other thing. They're going to be like, dude, what are you doing? That's dumb. That's absolutely pointless. You're wasting your time. You're spinning your wheels, and you got to get back on track. If you want to hit these results, you got to quit hiring your sisters. You got to quit bringing your family members in who you can't talk to and tell them, do this or it's hit the highway. That quick example, our contractor, plumber, whatever, how do they get past that white knuckle thing? Well, usually it starts with some intelligent delegation under the right set of systems, frameworks, and just kind of playbooks so that they just don't feel totally exposed. And then third, it's redeploying some of that time that they've got back into meeting with their CPA. So if somebody can say, get rid of this first, delegate this, here's a system that you can keep an eye on doing it, but not do it all yourself. And third, here's some of the things that you want to go look at spending some of your time doing now. So let's say that brings in 5 hours a week. One of my favorites is hire an assistant because that's the easiest place to start. You can bring somebody in, delegate low-level stuff where even if it's botched, it's not that big of a deal. You know, like sure, you may look stupid, get some egg on your face, have an email that goes out to the wrong person, or, you know, but we're not talking about catastrophic damage. So low price tag, low cost of errors if made, and potentially 5, 6, 8 hours a week back in your time. If you use that time now to start working on your business, and then second, you use some of that time to go meet with your CPA once a quarter. And you just have a conversation. I'm going to pay you for 1 hour of your time. I'm just going to sit here and talk to you about life, my business, the whole thing. And that CPA is looking at it all through the lens of, I'm a certified public accountant. I'm here to give you financial advice, accounting advice, tax advice. And you go, wait, whoa, hang on. You realize that this, what are you doing? This, you should be writing this off. Wait a minute, how have you been categorizing that? $36,000 a year that you can now claim as business expense that you weren't claiming. Now, how many more of those are there? Because I guarantee I have some. And I love finding new ones, but I have them. You have them. Everybody has them. And that $36,000 difference, now all of a sudden, well, you've probably paid for your assistant in one of those things. So now you're at a net break even. But you also still have this 5-8 hours a week and you're learning. So as that old saying goes, no man ever steps in the same river twice. It's not the same man, it's not the same river. So if you learn these new rules and now you start thinking, what else is in my books that I'm doing wrong? I'm keeping my books the same way that I have been for 20 years. And when I started 20 years ago, I was 20 years old. I didn't know anything. So you start analyzing those occasionally and you bring new questions to that CPA because now you have a meeting coming up in 90 days. After the first one, you're like, man, we just made $36,000. Now you start keeping notes. You see how these behaviors create an identity that is a little different. And then what happens is, it doesn't happen automatically, but there is an element of almost like magnetism or attraction, or because as your behaviors change and who you or this entrepreneur is changes and their day-to-day things, like the things they do all day long change, the results that they get will change.
If you just hired an assistant, you could get 5 to 10 hours back like that. Or if you just met with your accountant, you could get maybe, $30,000 of take-home profit that you weren't seeing before, just like that. So there's resources to unlock really quick if they just learn to get out of their way for a second and breathe.
When you mix things up, and this is the kind of the 2x and 10x, 10 is easier than 2 because you don't really change your paradigm at all when you go in to try to do 2x. But when you do 10x, it really forces you to take a look at everything from a different angle. So your question or comment was, there really is a lot right there. There could be really a lot. If I bring somebody on to work with, I will tell them that 5 to 8 hours a week back on your calendar like that. That's like having 8 days a week, right? If that's a big change, it doesn't feel big, but I'm going to remind you how big it is. I'm going to show you how big it is because it's enormous. And now if you had one whole extra day, you could spend half that day getting way more done at work and half that day getting way more done with your family. Just think of that. If you were the only guy on earth that had 8 days a week, whew, it'd be a game changer, right? So if you're wanting to get different results and become just a little bit of a different person, you start doing different things that start to contribute to that. When you go get a massage, you're putting some of your time and your money into you. That says something on a subconscious, subtle level that there's probably some ROI to that. I don't know how to measure it or what it is, but I believe it to be true. 2, I've never left a massage feeling worse than when I went into the massage, ever. And I get them a lot.
I know that a lot of people hesitate to get a coach or to invest in a course that's going to help them learn and reach the next level. They feel like things are too tight. I mean, the resources are not abundant to where I feel like I can do that.
There's a system that you need to deploy, and it needs to be based on a vision that you have, the direction you want your life to go. So if I want my life to go that direction, and I know that from here to there is going to take me 6 months, and it's going to be hard, and I'm looking at that, and I have that in my mind, and I can see the destination over there, and I'm like, oh man, I'm working hard, and I'm white knuckling it, I'm using all the metaphors that you brought up and you're questioning to me, and then somebody says, hey, I can cut a month off of that, and it's $5,000. I'm like, Now, what kind of a system do I have for that kind of a question, for that kind of an opportunity? Have I created enough of the financial safeguards where I even have the money that I could capitalize on that? Because a month is a long time. How much money can you make in a month if you could cut a month out of that and assure the results? Okay? Maybe they're not assured. Maybe it's not guaranteed. Maybe I don't know. All right, well, what's your system for that? If you fight for your limitations, you'll always get them. You'll win every single time. I'm just not interested in fighting for my limitations. I want to be informed when I'm subconsciously fighting for my limitations. Because I know I do that dumb shit sometimes. Sometimes I'm so ingrained into a habit or a mental pattern or a groove or a rut or something that I'm just not even aware of, that I actually start fighting for a limitation. And it's like leg day, man. I don't like working out my legs. Okay, this is a limitation. That's why they look like twigs, so I want to change that. I have to push through the desire to not want to do legs and look at something further away to get past that limiting belief. I will say, generally speaking, that the investments that you make in yourself are usually the ones that pay the biggest returns. But man, if you don't have the commitment, like if you think it's just somebody else is going to do it for you, like that's foolish.
Having the proper expectations when you make an investment like that. We talked recently about how sometimes we hope that when we make an investment that there's going to be immediate ROI and it just works out wonderfully. But then we read in Gary Vee's book, Day Trading Attention, he makes a $10,000 investment expecting zero ROI.
That's a good point.
But to learn A, B, and C.
Right. See, he goes into that wanting to learn and test hypotheses. And so that spend has an outcome tied to it. And truly, and in the book he says, truly, I really don't expect a zero ROI, but I change my expectation and what I talk about so that I don't get into the opposite that I've spoken about, which is the silver bullet thinking. Now that's what's dangerous. So if you're just like, okay, everything's chaotic and I've been hitting my head against the ceiling so many times and I just can't get through, but this thing is going to make all the difference in the world. No, it's not. Like, if you can look at that and say, I've done that 1,000 times, I've looked at silver bullet thinking, I've wasted my money, and I'm not going to do it this time. But why did I waste my money? Well, I didn't show up every time. Well, I thought that was going to be the answer. I still need to do my job. Well, I didn't really know how to show up and ask questions. Or that just made me think of somebody who said, I went and met with the CPA and it was $7,500 and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, when did you first talk to the CPA? Well, today. I'm like, well, this was like in March, dude. So I'm like, so the busiest time of a CPA's life, you've never had a conversation with the person before. You walked in and you're frustrated that they had your tax return done in 13 seconds. Like, take some personal responsibility because you screwed the pooch on that one. Okay. So that CPA only has this much time to deal with you. And then he has another appointment right after you and another one and another one and another one. And he's going to make 80% of his income for the year during the months of March and April. So yeah, if you're willing to pay him $7,500 for a 30-minute consultation and a 5-minute tax preparation, then I think you're a jackass. And he's probably charged 10 other people like that since you've called me. You don't want to have silver bullet thinking. There's no magic elixir. There's no one thing that spending a little money is going to take the place of doing the work. But if you know that you want to learn something from it and you have some hypotheses that you're trying to test and theories you're trying to learn or time you're trying to take off the clock to a desired outcome, those are worthwhile things. And know that that investment that you're making today, you want to get the most out. Squeeze every drop from it because you may get the training that you need to shorten something by a week or a month today, but that same training or that same knowledge or that same course, it may start paying dividends 5 years from now because of new knowledge that you have that you're going to have forever. So the ROI could keep coming and keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. But if you don't show up, it doesn't matter how much. You can hire the best coach. You can hire the best CPA. And they're just going to say, $7,500. Because in their mind, they're like, well, there's nothing I can do. She's giving me nothing to work off of. So I'm just going to plug what she gave me into my tax software. It takes no time for me, but I'm one of the best. So I charge $7,500 for a tax return. Therefore, he's not taking that much time to even stop and process the thoughts like I just did. It's automatic. That same CPA, though, if you meet with them quarterly, I don't know him personally, but I almost would guarantee that there would be a reflective conversation and there would be questions. And he would say, well, what about this? How many times have you been done doing this with this? And how about your car? And when did you get the car? And is the car used for anything personally or just business? And maybe come to some of the same conclusions, but that's because you're talking to him in May and then in July and then in November. And then comes March, when it's busy time, he knows all about you. The books are already set up to make the tax return quick and easy. He still charges you $7,500, but you feel really good about it because he's taught you along the way how to get the most out of your tax return. I've been blessed with abundance and have the opportunity to just kind of pick up and purchase a lot of anything that I want willy-nilly. And that's created some bad habits sometimes. You can get into just like blowing cash on too many things, too much of the time, which kind of drops the value almost. So for me, I've turned that around by putting purchases on the back of goals. So if I want to get a calorie tracker, or if I want to get a Aura sleep ring, or if I want to get something like that that's a few $100, rather than just going out and buying it and saying, well, it's personal development, I always want to invest in myself, I say, I am going to invest in myself. I write that down and say, well, now what do I got to do to get that? Well, I'm going to get down to 11% body fat. And once I have that, I've been wearing the same couple of pair of shoes to the gym for like 2 or 3 years, and it's bugging me, and I won't go buy new shoes. And that's just one of those examples. Not that that's personal development, but it's that behavior pattern that I've kind of done this at the gym. I've been pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the results. I'm okay, but I'm not great, And so I've thought, am I going to do this cut and really be aggressive? Am I going to stick to it, or I'm going to have a jelly bean because it's Easter? Zero. Dude, none. Not one drop of sugar all weekend. When you see me at the gym and I have new shoes on, you'll know that I'm below 11% body fat. With books, as long as I'm going to read the book, I'll always buy a book. Never hesitate with the book, because I figured for 10 to 15 bucks, you can get a lifetime of knowledge, and all I got to do is exchange some of my time. And I'm on the treadmill like an hour every day now anyway, so I read a lot of books. But the hows are going to suck. There's going to be days that hows always suck. What do I got to do today? Well, everything's going to start on fire, and people are going to quit, and you're going to get curveballs, and you're going to be faced with things you didn't think about last week were going to be showing up today. But when your why is important, then the how becomes manageable and doable. And then pretty soon those things that were terrible and they sucked, they become tolerable. And the things that were tolerable become doable. The things that were doable become comfortable. And the things that are comfortable become easy. And you continue to force things through that matrix where it's like, but you got to be willing to do the stuff that's difficult. Why would you do stuff that's difficult? Because of the why. The how is the steps you got to take. But when your why is sufficient, and the only way that your why is sufficient, and this is where most people just totally miss it, is they don't ever get clear on their why. They have a fuzzy kind of why. Oh, it's for my kids. Oh, it's because I want to do this. No, man. And that's okay, but that's just not, it's not going to deliver and drive the kind of results that I want in my life. I know that to get those, I have to be clear. And with clarity and precision and a high definition picture of what I want my future to look like, I can attract it and pull it towards me. It's like, shh, and I can just bring it closer and closer and closer. Sometimes in a couple of months, we don't get through a lot of it because you need more time to start to become that different version of yourself. But for the clients that I work with for a year or more, they really start to get it because they go through that first few layers, which is what everybody wants in the beginning. Most people don't come to me because they want like this vision of 25 years and all this clarity and how to work on their goals. They're like, damn, dude, I've been hitting my head against the ceiling and I don't know what to do, and I'm white knuckling, I'm about to freaking throw this thing out. They're frustrated and they're angry and they're losing money, or the work isn't worth the money that they get, and all these, or their business is to the point where they want to start thinking about selling it, but they know nobody would buy it because it's a hot freaking mess. So that's why most people come in. But the ones that I get to work with for a year, they get enough time to go through this process and start realizing, wow, now that I'm becoming a different person and I have these goals and these visions, their day-to-day choices, they learn how to align those choices to where right now, this is what, back to your first question, I think it was, what are people doing when they're like bonking their head against the ceiling? Why do they keep doing this? And how come they can't break through and the white knuckling isn't enough? It's because 1 hour of their day, they're going this direction. Another hour of their day, they're going this direction. Another hour of their day, they're going this direction. And then they get to the end of the day and they're like, I'm right where I started. It's because they went like this. And that's what most people do. And so there's very little forward progress, but they survive. They exist. Again, that's why I like working with people longer, because we get through that initial layer is like pushing the springboard down, right? Let's get the delegated crap off your plate. Let's get the systems in place to keep an eye on it. Let's get the mindset right so that you can start looking at other areas that you can improve in your life. And then we deploy time into new things like meet with your CPA and go to the gym, or whatever these things are that are aligned with some of your goals. Now that we've got that springboard down and they start to become a different person, the springboard starts to go and it blasts off into this whole new level. And that's where breaking the revenue goals becomes like automatic, because now they're like, whoa, what could I do? Because of alignment, because all the decisions make sense. Start with the level of delegation, then you get into delegations, systems, mindset. You climb those first few steps, you start to get into this different, it's almost like you come above the fog, right? And you can see over the clouds a little bit. And you're like, oh, it looks different up here. When you're up there, that's pushing that springboard down. And now you start to make decisions with alignment of purpose. So your question was, do I work with the goals and things of these people that I coach and talk to? Oh, yeah. Because the ones that are serious about looking at a longer term, that want to architect or engineer a certain lifestyle, I love that, because it's just, you get to start making decisions and it becomes clear to contrast the last 5 years where I made half my decisions going this way and the other half going that way in a day. And then I'm wondering why I'm not making any forward movement. Well, if you line them both up and all your decisions go that way, you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh, look, I made it 14 feet further.
I've been working all day over here, going in all sorts of directions, and they all feel necessary. Is there a way to reframe all those necessary tasks to be in alignment and moving in the same direction? Yeah,
there's a 2-part framework that unlocks kind of the third level, that starts tapping into the third level. But for quick wins, it's delegation and it's systems. Those are the first two. And then later we get into mindset, which is that alignment you're talking about. But that takes a little bit of time, as you can maybe imagine, if you had this habit of just chaos all the time. And that's what people come to me for, is they're in chaos. They feel chaotic. And I can really speak, I'm a master at chaos. And I've been through a lot of it, from mastering how to live a chaotic life of an addict, trying to keep lies, to keep my house of cards up all over the place, figuring out a way to actually use those skills in a productive manner. And that's what I do. I'm chasing all these things, and I got to chase all of them. I got to do all these things, and I'm making no progress. I can't make any progress doing this. I need help. I can't see it the way, help me. You've been there. Dude, help me figure this out. Okay, let's get 10, 20, 30% of the things you're dealing with off of your plate entirely. Delegate. Let's create some systems for that. You don't have systems? Take mine. Here, I've created systems for hundreds of different companies across myriad of different sectors. Take one of my playbooks, take one of my processes, my systems, plug it in, modify it a little bit here. I'll help you polish it up. Now you can just plug it right in and it works for you. So now you've delegated and you've got some systems to keep an eye on that delegation and to have a framework that people can now do the job that you were going to do, that you were chasing that direction. So that, let's just say that way is one of those things I say, let's just take that off. We're going to put it over here and delegate it to somebody else. So now you only go in 6 ways. You're not going 7. Okay, we took the 7th, we threw that over here. Maybe we can get that one too. Let's go that one. Let's put that over here under a system, under a framework. Okay, now you only have to go 5 ways in a day. There's more resources now. Now with time and resources available, if they truly can do that in a little bit of time, instead of chasing those 2 things themselves, they've delegated it to somebody else under the proper framework or system. Now we can start looking at how to deploy that time doing something else. Okay, and that's where we start to look at the mindset that's going into all of this and getting clear. That's why I start with delegations and systems. Because if I can get them back a little bit of time, I can then start working on mindset and clarity and vision and direction. With that comes alignment, right? So at the same time that they're doing that, they're getting a little bit better at these systems and these systems and this delegation process over here. So while working on mindset, they may go from 5 things down to 4. And over the next 90 days, they may go from 4 to 3. So now they're only chasing 3 things. Now they're getting more clear on what their mindset needs to be, the direction they want to go. And by default, some alignment starts to take place, because it becomes a lot more clear that me taking out the garbages in the office is not worth my time. And then you start looking at those decisions that you're making on a day-to-day basis and say, is this helping me get closer to that or farther away? And as you get good at making enough space in your calendar through delegation, proper systems of delegation, and then you work on that mindset a bit, you'll start to make those decisions a lot more automatically. If you have that picture and you know where you're going, and there's a task that's going to start calling on your attention, it's like, the task isn't important. Or I've got to get these organizational things in place because they're sucking so much of my time away by being disorganized that I can't actually focus on what matters most because I'm doing this all day long. So it becomes more and more and more clear the more clear your picture gets. Have you noticed that?
Oh, yeah.
There's almost this element of, it feels a little automatic. It's not. It's because you're putting in the work. You have begun to engage enough discipline in thoughts, in systems, mindset, and delegation that you're starting to just see things that make more sense than they did a year ago and 6 months ago. So you're like, well, no, I have to put in the time. Oh, I don't really know if that's going to be my goal in a year from now, so maybe I shouldn't do that. Like, just stupid fighting for your limitations. And it really just boils down to fighting for a limitation that, again, it's hard for you to see in your own mind and in your own way and in your own paradigm because you're living in your own reality. And it's hard for an organism to recognize anything in itself. That's why sometimes you need an outsider's view to be like, what are you doing? Snap out of it here. Like, wake up. What are we like? Why would you do this when that is your goal? Why are you going this way when you really want to be over there? And if you're open to that and willing to hear some of those things, that's the best way to go. It's the fastest way to go.